So now I'm going to show you how to make the duck feet. And you can see how there are 3 ridges, and then you have the little flaps between the ridges for the duck feet. You're going to make 2 of these. So to make 1 duck foot, you're going to need 3 triangles. So I'm going to show you how to make one of the triangles. So the first thing we're going to do is take the orange colored yarn, and then you're going to fold it over on itself to form a loop. Put your crochet hook right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. Then just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, go through the loop for a slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that knot down, and then cinch the loop around your crochet hook. Then you're going to make a chain of 9. I'm just going to show you 4 of them on video tutorial. Just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through the loop for 1, 2, 3, 4. So go ahead, finish a chain of 9, and then come back. So after you finish your chain of 9, you're going to make a single crochet into the second chain from your hook. So go into your second chain from the hook, bring up a loop, and make a single crochet. And then you're going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch back across. And when you finished your last stitch, you should have a stitch count of 8. Now you can take and just turn your work, and then you're going to go into the next stitch over. So you're going to go right into the next stitch over, bring up a loop, make a single crochet, and then you're just going to make 1 single crochet into each of the stitches across, and that should give you a stitch count of 7 when you're finished. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. Then you're just going to turn your work again, and then you're going to go into the next stitch over for your first single crochet. So there's your first one, second, third, fourth, fifth, and the 6th one. Then you're going to turn your work again and make a single crochet into the next stitch. And you'll notice that your number is decreasing by 1, so this one will have a stitch count of 5. Then you're going to turn your work again, go into the next stitch over for your single crochet, and now you're going to have a stitch count of 4 when you're finished. Turn your work again, go into the next stitch over, make your single crochet, 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet into your 3rd stitch. Turn your work, 1 single crochet into the next stitch, 1 single crochet into the second stitch, turn your work, and then the last single crochet will be into the next stitch for the tip of the triangle. Then you can go ahead and finish off, just yarn over, and then just pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. And then you're going to need 3 triangles for each foot. So you can go ahead and make all 6 now, or just make 3 and follow along. So now you should have all 3 triangles for one of the duck feet. And you're going to put one aside for now. You're only going to use 2 of your triangles for now. And then just take the 2 loose yarn ends at the top of the triangle and just tie those together. And then you're going to take and line up the 2 edges of the triangle. And then take your crochet hook and go right through the tip of both of the triangles. And then bring up a loop with your yarn, the orange colored yarn. You can go ahead and chain 1. And then just tie a knot with one of the loose yarn ends. Then you're going to take and chain 2. One, 2, and then you're going to make 1/2 double crochet into each stitch across the side of the triangle. Now the stitches you're going to have to evenly space them because you're working along the side of the triangle, which is the end of the rows. So just yarn over and then go into the next space and then grab a stitch on both of the edges of the triangles and then bring up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. Go ahead and yarn over, turn the hook upside down and bring the yarn through all 3 loops to complete a 1/2 double crochet. And you're going to make 1/2 double crochet into each, evenly spaced along the side of the triangle, crocheting the 2 triangle pieces together. So go ahead, finish making 1/2 double crochet evenly spaced along the edge of the triangle, crocheting the 2 triangle pieces together, and then come back. Then when you finish the last 1/2 double crochet, you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. And then you can see how that creates a nice ridge for the webbed appearance of the duck feet. And now you're going to get your other triangle, and you want to make sure that the ridge will be on the same side as your previous ridge. So you just line up that 3rd triangle. Just take that 3rd triangle. You see I have the ridge facing up. Go ahead and take your triangle and place it under with the tip of the triangle towards the tip of the previous triangle. Go ahead and tie a knot. You might have to flip your triangle back. Then you're going to take your crochet hook and you're going to place it right at the tip and grab both triangle pieces. And again, you want to make sure that your ridge is going to be on the right side. So if you don't have a ridge right here, that means that you have it on backwards. So you should have the ridge you're creating here, and then your previous ridge should be right behind your crochet hook. And then I want to bring up a loop with my orange colored yarn. Try to bring up a loop. Let me try that again. Then you can go ahead and chain one, and then just tie a knot with one of the many loose yarn ends that you have at the tip there. And then we'll bury these loose yarn ends later. And I'll show you how to do that. So now, you're just going to make a chain of 2. 1, 2. And then you're just going to make 1/2 double crochet along the side of the 2 triangles, just like you did for the previous ridge. And then that will effectively crochet the 2 triangular pieces together and create a ridge to get the webbed look for your duck feet. So go ahead, finish making 1/2 double crochet, evenly spaced, crocheting the 2 triangle pieces together, and then come back. Then again, when you reach the end, you just go ahead and finish off, just yarn over, and then just pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. Then you have the 2 ribbed portions. Now you need your third one. So to create your third one, I'm going to show you what to do. So for your third ridge, you're going to take your crochet hook and you're going to join it right into the tip of the triangle. So here is your one ridge, here is your second ridge. So those should be facing up. And then put your crochet hook into the tip of the corner. And then just bring up a loop. Then you can chain 1. And then go ahead and tie a knot with the loose yarn ends. Then you're going to take and chain 2. And then you're going to make 1/2 double crochet into each stitch across the one edge of the triangle. I'm just going to go behind one of my loose yarn ends as I crochet. So only 1/2 double crochet, evenly spaced across the one edge of the one triangle. So I'm not crocheting any triangles together, I'm just crocheting along one edge of the triangle. And then come back when you reach the end. Then you just take, after you finish the one row of 1/2 double crochet and every evenly spaced along the edge of the triangle, then you're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then turn your work, and then you're just going to make 1/2 double crochet into the next stitch over, and then 1/2 double crochet into every stitch back across to the tip of the triangle. Then you can take and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to sew the edge the ridge down. So now you can take and fold that top row of half double crochets on top of the previous row of half double crochets, and then take your tapestry needle or your darning needle, put that long end that you left for sewing onto it, and then you're just going to take and sew that ridge in place. So you go down and sew the base so that you secure the ridge so that it's facing up, just like the other previous ridges. Just go back and forth, and then just sew the ridge in place. Now you have a ridge on this side, a middle ridge, and then the outer ridge. Then you can take this third webbed portion and just kind of fold it under, because ducks usually have a smaller webbed portion on the other side of the ridge. Then just take and sew that ridge or that web portion down. So just take your tapestry needle and just sew it along the inner aspect. Just going to go ahead and tie a knot here. So I buried some of my loose yarn ends already, but I'm going to show you how to bury your loose yarn ends. So I just want to show you again where I'm sewing. So the ridges are on the right side. Just turn your work over and you're sewing that webbed portion, folding it in a triangular fashion. And that's what it looks like on the right side. And this is the wrong side, and I'm just taking and sewing along the inner portion. Make sure that when you bring your yarn through to the right side that you make small stitches. You don't want your stitches to show through. And then just sew that webbed portion in place. You just want to make it a little bit smaller than the other webbed portions. So this is what the finished duck foot will look like. And I'm going to show you how to bury the loose yarn ends. Leave the long yarn ends for sewing the duck foot onto your duck, but take your small loose yarn ends and then you're just going to weave them into the wrong side of the work. So I just bring it to the wrong side, and then you just kind of weave the tapestry or darning needle through the wrong side of your work. And then that will bury the loose yarn end, and then you can just trim it. So go ahead and bury any loose yarn ends, and like I said before, just leave any long ends for sewing the duck foot onto your duck. So you want to line up your duck feet where you want to have them, and make sure that your ridges are facing up, the right side facing up. Then you can just take and sew the bottom. I left the front portions free, so I just sewed the back portion only. And mine are, here's the magic circle on the bottom of the duck. Mine's approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 9 rounds back. And then you also want to make sure that they're even in the front. So you don't want one sticking out further than the other one. And then once you have them the position that you want, you can just take your tapestry needle and take and sew the bottom portion of the duck foot. Now the bottom portion is where the tips of the triangles are. So the webbed portion will be the bottom portion of the triangle. And as you can see, I don't have the ridges on the wrong side. The ridges you want on the right side of the duck foot. Then you just take and finish sewing. And like I said before, I just sewed the edges of the duck feet. And then you can just double check the front. I kind of wiggle my tapestry needle if it goes through a thick portion. carefully. And then you can make sure that you don't have any strands showing. And then once you're happy with the way that it looks, you can take and go back where you have another loose yarn end. If you don't have a loose yarn end, then you just tie a knot. But I have a loose yarn end, so I'm going to take and tie a knot. And then what I do, I like to do triple knots. Then what I do is I just take the loose yarn ends, go back where you tied your knot, wherever it's easiest to go through, and then come out anywhere. And you want to make sure that you go under the orange part. And then you can take and trim. You don't want your loose yarn end to show on the right side. So go ahead, bury your loose yarn ends, and then sew your feet on. This is what her duck feet look like when I'm finished. Now I'm going to show you how to make the back feathers. Now for the wing, you're going to start with the main color, yellow, and you're going to fold the yarn over on itself to make a loop. Take your crochet hook, go right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb. Then you're just going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for a slip knot. Go ahead and cinch that knot down and cinch the loop around the crochet hook. Now you're going to make a chain of 7. So just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through the loop for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And now you're going to take your crochet hook, go into the second chain from the hook, bring up a loop, make a single crochet, and then you're going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch back across. So this first chain that we made is the starting chain, and now as we're making 1 single crochet into each stitch back across, that would be considered our first row. And when you finish the first row, you should have a total of 6 stitches. Now you're going to move up to the next row, so you're going to chain 1, then turn your work, and that chain 1 counts as your first stitch for the second row. Take your crochet hook, go into the next stitch over, and make a single crochet. And then you're also going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch back across, and then that will give you a stitch count of 6 after completing this second row as well. So far I have, counting the first chain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 1 more stitch to complete the second row with a stitch count of 6. Now you're going to chain 1 again, and then turn your work, and this time you're going to make a single crochet into the same stitch as your chain 1. So go into that same stitch and make a single crochet, and then that chain 1 counts as a stitch, and so does the single crochet. So far we have a stitch count of 2. And then you're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch, and then you're going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch except for the last stitch. In the last stitch you're going to make 2 single crochet, and then that will give you a stitch count of 8. So I'm at the last stitch. I'm going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch. And then that gives you a stitch count of 8. Then you're going to chain 1, turn your work. This time you're only going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch. So that chain 1 counts as your first stitch for this row. You're going to go into the next stitch over and make a single crochet. So that's my second. Next stitch for my third single crochet. Next stitch for my fourth. Fifth. Sixth. Seventh. And then the last stitch to end with a stitch count of 8. Now you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and this time you're going to make a single crochet into the same stitch. So that chain 1 and that single crochet counts as 2 stitches. You're going to go into the next stitch for a single crochet for your third, next stitch for your fourth, next stitch for your fifth, sixth, 7, 8, and then in the last stitch you're going to make 2 single crochet, which will give you a stitch count of 10 after finishing this row. Now we're going to move up to the next row, so you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and this time you're going to go into the next stitch over and make a single crochet, and you're going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch back across, and we're going to maintain our stitch count of 10. So now you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then you're going to make a single crochet into the same stitch. So your chain 1 and single crochet counts as 2 stitches. Next stitch, 1 single crochet for your third. Next stitch, 1 for your fourth. And you're going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch across except for the last stitch. In the last stitch, you're going to make 2 single crochet into the same stitch, and then that will give you a stitch count of 12 to finish the row. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now I'm going to make 2 single crochet into the last stitch, which will give me a stitch count of 12 to end the row. Then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then just make 1 single crochet into every stitch across, which will still leave a stitch count of 12. So now for the next 6 rows, we're going to keep the stitch count at 12. So you're going to chain 1, turn your work, make a single crochet into the next stitch, and then you can also place a yarn marker so you can keep track, so you know that this is your first row, because you're going to need a total of 6 rows, not counting the previous rows that we've made. So starting here, you're going to be making 1 single crochet in every stitch, and then when you reach the end you chain 1, turn your work, and then make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across, and you're going to maintain a stitch count of 12 until you've completed a total of 6 rows. So you can double check. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And this is my first row. So I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and then make a single crochet into the next stitch. And then I'm just going to keep repeating this until I have made a total of 6 rows. So I completed 6 rows, and my yarn marker helped me keep track of them. So I'm going to remove the yarn marker. Now I finished my last single crochet in the 6th row with the stitch count of 12. You're not going to chain 1, you're just going to turn your work. And you're going to make a single crochet into the next stitch over. And then you're just going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch back across. And that's going to give you a stitch count of 11 when you're finished. So now you should have a stitch count of 11. And after you finish your last single crochet, just turn your work. And then make a single crochet into the next stitch over. And then 1 single crochet into every stitch back across. And when you finish this row, you'll have a stitch count of 10. Then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, make a single crochet into the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet into every stitch back across. And when you finish this row, you'll have a stitch count of 10. So this is how my work is looking so far. Now you can chain 1, turn your work, make a single crochet into the next stitch over, and then go ahead and place your yarn marker to help you keep track of the rows. This will count as your first row, and we're maintaining a stitch count of 10. So you're making 1 single crochet in every stitch across, and this will count as your first row with the additional stitch counts of 10, and we want a total of 6 more with a stitch count of 10. So you're just going to keep chaining 1 at the end. I'll go ahead and finish this first row with you and then move up to the second row. So now I've reached the end. I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and then make a single crochet into the next stitch for my second row with a stitch count of 10. So go ahead, finish a total of 6 with a stitch count of 10, and then come back. So now you can remove your yarn marker, and then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then you're going to make 1 single crochet in each stitch except for the last 2 stitches. Leave the last 2 stitches unworked, and then that will give you a stitch count of 8 for this row. So now you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then you're just going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch back across. Then when you reach the end, you're going to chain 1, turn your work, make 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet in each stitch except for the last 2. So that's my third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. And you can see how you're creating this stepped appearance on the opposite side. So now you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and then make 1 single crochet in each stitch back across. Then chain 1, turn your work, and this time you're going to go into the next stitch, and then again, that's your second stitch, next stitch is your third, and next stitch is your fourth. So again, you're leaving those last 2 stitches unworked. So now my stitch count is 4, chain 1, turn your work, make a single crochet into the next stitch, 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and 1 single crochet into the next stitch. So you can see how I have a stepped appearance on the opposite side but a straight edge on the other side if you're doing it correctly. So then chain 1 again, turn your work, and then you're going to make 1 single crochet into the next stitch and then leave the last 2 unworked. Then go ahead and chain 1, turn your work, and then make a single crochet into the next stitch. Then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and just pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. And then you finished 1 wing. You need 2 of these, so go ahead and make 1 more. So now you should have 2 wings. And now we're going to put a gold border around the wing. So take one of your wings, and then I'm just joining on the one side where I have the loose yarn end where we started, and then just bring up a loop with your gold colored yarn, and then you can go ahead and tie a knot. And then I just leave the loose yarn ends because we're going to tuck them into the wrong side anyway, so you're not going to see them. Then you're just going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then you're going to make 1/2 double crochet into each stitch except for the corners. So you just yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through all 3 for a 1/2 double crochet. And you're going to make 1/2 double crochet in each stitch except for when you reach corners or curves or turns. And I'm going to work this first one with you. So now when you reach that corner stitch, you're going to place 2 1/2 double crochets into the same stitch. Then when you turn, you're just going to resume making 1/2 double crochet until you reach another curve. And then you just place 2 1/2 double crochet into the same stitch. And that just helps the work to lie flat as you turn the corner. So now I just want to show you as I make 1/2 double crochets around the stepped area. You can just see how I made my 1/2 double crochets. And this is how my work is looking. So this is what my wing looks like. Then, when I reach the beginning, I'm going to make a slip stitch into the top stitch of that first chain 2 that we made. So you just yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops for a slip stitch. Then just finish off, just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to sew the wing onto the duck. So go ahead and repeat this for the other wing. Crochet the half double crochet around the other wing. Now you want to take and line up the wing on the side of the body. So for mine, you can see that I'm about a couple of rounds up from the wave portion on the bottom of the body. And I've lined up the front along with the beak. So wherever you line up your wing, you want the other side, the opposite side, to be lined up just like the one side. So for this wing, I'm going to sew the top first because I want to, on the bottom, I want to tuck in a little bit of craft stuffing to make the wing puff out a little bit. So I'm just going to sew along the top, gold portion only. And this is optional, but at the end you can leave the tip of the wing free if you want to. So for mine, I'm taking a little bit of the same colored yellow yarn to sew the end because I want the wing to be free. And again, you want to make sure that you leave a little bit of a loose yarn end for tying a knot. And you can tie the knot on the wrong side if you want to. I just tied it on the same side. And then just take and sew the end because if you're placing stuffing, craft stuffing, you don't want the craft stuffing to come out. So I'm just kind of securing this end of it. And then I will bring the loose yarn end into the wrong side. Both loose yarn ends. And then just tie another knot on the inside. And then you can bring the gold yarn across to the opposite side. And then just use these loose yarn ends as stuffing. And then you're going to take your gold yarn, just bring it through to the wrong side. And then you can just take and resume sewing down the gold side on the opposite side, and then you can take some craft stuffing and place it in the wing. So I just placed a little bit of craft stuffing into the wing to make it poof out a little bit. Got my loose yarn end in there. I'm going to tuck that back in. And then you just finish sewing down the wing, and then you sew the other side the same way. Just make sure that when you line up your wing that you have the stepped portion towards the bottom and then the flatter portion towards the top. And then you just take and sew it in place. This is what my wing looks like after I have it completely sewn in place. You can see how the craft stuffing makes it poof out a little bit. And then I have the tip of the wing free. And this is what my wing looks like on both sides. Looks good.